I am everything. I am life. I am creation. I am everything. I am the sword of truth. You drink your worries away. You worry too much. Me, I am too much. Ha!
That boy Tio say that the way that he looked this past Saturday night, it was all a part of the plan. He wanted to look subpar, and it was also a part of God's plan for him to look subpar because he had to trick fighters like Gervonta Davis to get in the ring with him. We're going to talk about what Tio had to say. I'm going to let y'all hear exactly everything he had to say. Plus, let's break down how he looked in the fight this past Saturday. Make sure y'all hit my like button, and then let's go ahead and cook on it. So Tio, man, he did a lot of talking leading up to his fight this past Saturday. Tio talked about how he was pretty much just so far above of all the competition from 135 all the way through 147. I mean, Tio, he was talking about fighting Terrence Crawford, and he said he would never fight Shakur because Shakur ain't on his level. He called Gervonta Davis all type of peas and bitches, and we heard him say everything leading up to this fight like he always does. But could he perform the way that he was talking? Now, I didn't get to watch the fight on Saturday, but I got a chance to go back and watch Teofimo versus Steve Clagget in full on Sunday night. And let's just talk about the fight, man. First of all, this guy Steve Clagget was an opponent that pretty much nobody knew who he was. For those who don't know, Teofimo Lopez handpicked and chose Clagget. They presented Tio with probably I believe 5 or 6 other opponents, and those other opponents were all better on paper than a Steve Clagget. But he wanted to fight Steve Clagget. We also know that Tio, he said that he pretty much is not going to fight another fighter that likes to box and move. He wants to fight certain style of fighters, and that certain style is a come-forward fighter that's going to put pressure on him. So he picked Steve Clagget. Now, I'm watching the fight, and that's exactly what Steve Clagget is. He's a come-forward pressure fighter. But what I noticed about Steve Clagget is he was very slow. You could see his punches coming from a mile away. And he has a tight guard. He was coming forward with a tight guard, kind of like a Pitbull Cruz. So when I'm watching him fight, I said, okay, I can see why Tio compared him to a Pitbull Cruz because he kind of got the same fighting style, but he throws a different punch arsenal than Pitbull Cruz because if you watch Pitbull Cruz, all Pitbull Cruz does is come in and he throw overhand lefts, overhand rights, and he'll throw hooks. That's it. He don't throw no straight shots, hardly any uppercuts, just mostly overhand lefts and rights and hooks. Steve Clagget, he was the exact opposite. He comes in like Pitbull Cruz. He's slower than Pitbull Cruz, but he throws pretty much straight shots. And so I'm like, okay, he's a decent pressure fighter, decent defense, but it's somebody that Teofimo should be able to style on. He should really be able to get off on Steve Clagget. And from an offensive standpoint, I saw Teofimo Lopez do exactly that. He looked very good offensively, but his power didn't carry. And we haven't seen Tio's power carry ever since he moved up to 140 pounds. He ain't cracking like he was at 135. And that's why all of these fighters that Tio gets in the ring with at 140, they're able to take his power. They're able to take his power pretty easily. And Steve Clagget was able to take Tio's power because I watched Tio hit Steve Clagget with everything he had in his arsenal, and he never not one time hurt Steve Clagget. Never not one time made Steve Clagget stop pressuring him. But Tio looked good, man. He looked very slick. His punches were very accurate. And man, he looked good offensively. You know what I'm saying? I'll give him an A offensively. That was a fighter that was made for Teo, style of fighting that he likes to fight against. We've seen Teo, he has a very, very serious problem when it comes to having to fight fighters that's going to make him fight on the front foot, make him have to cut off the ring and things of that nature. Fighters that can box, that like to move. Teo, he can't fight those style of fighters. He looks horrible against that style. But if you pressure Teo, that's when he's able to really get in his bag, use his footwork, and, you know, put his combinations together and just his whole offensive arsenal. So I give him an A offensively. But overall, I give Teo about a C performance. Why is that? Well, it's because if you look at Teo defense, his defense was some trash. I give him a D defensively. And what I saw defensively from Teofimo Lopez is he couldn't get out of the way of a jab to save his life. Steve Clagget was hitting Teo every time he threw a jab, every time he doubled up a jab, and then every time he came with the two behind the jab. Teo couldn't get away from the two either. And his defense was looking less than average. So I give him a D on defense, man. He gets hit way too much. A fighter like Steve Clagget that only puts on pressure, but he don't have fast hands. He don't have fast feet. Teo should have been able to really, really style on him to where he looked like he did offensively, but didn't even get touched defensively. But Teo was getting touched up. His face looked like he had been in a war. And that shows you how many punches he took from Steve Clagget. Now it comes to all of the shit that Teo was talking. Because he told everybody that nobody was on this level before this fight happened. But let's listen to Teo after the Steve Clagget fight. Matter of fact, I'm going to play it and I'm going to react to it right here with y'all. So here go Teo right here. Let's listen to him.
You know, these other guys don't like to face those type of calibrated fighters. They like to just, you know, face easy fights. But for everybody else, you know, whether it's 47, 40, you know, Bob said I did well. You don't look too happy. I don't care. Like, I'm your only last star.
Wait, hold up. He said all of these other guys, they don't like to face tough fighters. They just like easy fights. Well, they showed the list of fighters that you turned down to pick Steve Clagget. So you talking about these other guys, but Teo need to be keeping it real about himself. Because ain't nobody called for you and Steve Clagget. It was other fighters that was on that list that was way tougher than Steve Clagget that has 7 losses and 2 draws, if you really want to keep it a buck. And then right here, if you missed it, he just said that Bob Arum said I did good, and then he goes back and say, well, to keep it real, Bob don't look too happy, but F it. He's the only superstar I got left on this roster. So he got to deal with it. So basically he's saying, well, I don't give a damn how Bob Arum feels. I don't care what he think about my performance. He ain't got no choice but to keep me and keep on promote me as a star, because who else do we got on the roster? Now I got to think about that. Shakur's leaving, or should be leaving. He better be leaving. Then you got like Big Baby Jared Anderson. You got Inoue, but Inoue is a fighter, you know, that only fights in Japan. So what other American stars does he have? He really don't have none. So Teo was kind of telling the truth, but he got a lot of great up-and-coming fighters like Keyshawn Davis and things like that. So, you know, I can't really fault him for saying that. So, you know, it is what it is. But let's go ahead and continue to hear the rest of what Teo has to say. Here we go right here.
Deal with it. I am the best. I am the best. Forget the rest. Well, yeah, I'm there, man. You know what I'm saying? Tank, whatever the case is, they haven't faced fighters like this in a long time. Isaac Cruz was the only one and gave him all the way to 12 rounds. And a lot of people felt like he lost. So, for that essence, man, I just think like, hey, Tank, whatever the case be, I love the way it is. Like, God makes me sometimes look subpar. Like, God makes me sometimes look subpar. If that has to be that case, or these other chumps could come in and jump in the gun. Like, shit, I'm gonna get my hand raised. I guarantee you that. So, yeah, man.
Like you, champ.
They can't move, they can't stick, they can't do all that stuff, man.
Man, Tio the most delusional fighter in all of boxing. Real talk. And his dad needs to stop hyping that shit up. Hey, Poppy, they can't box like you, champ. Come on, man. Like, for real, you always talking about other fighters, and he needs to focus on what the hell he got going on. Because Teofimo, real talk, he got a whole lot of talent, but when it comes to the full package, he continues to show us he is not it. And another thing, he was very vocal about Shakur Stevenson wanting to fight him, but he said he'll never fight Shakur because Shakur needs to stay in his own lane and he needs to move back down to 126 or 130. Well, Tio, I think most of the world can agree with me that you need to move back down to 135 because your shit ain't hitting like it was at 135 now that you at 140 pounds. You ain't looking the same. And Tio, you continue to have mediocre performances. Why is this? Because you are who we thought you were. And you always talking about guys like Tank and he's this and he ain't this and all these other fighters. Anytime you talk about another fighter, you shit on them. That shows your shortcomings. Tio, you insecure. You jealous. You can see the hate, the envy pouring all out of him. Tio is a very talented fighter, but he got a lot to work on in order to become who he say he is. And I don't see that ever happen. Y'all let me know how y'all feel about this. Drop a comment in the comment section. Make sure you hit my like button, subscribe to the channel. And y'all already know how I do. Tego talking that boxing again, and I'm gone.